Hello there. You are watching Political Dharma with Alan Zundell. This is the show that mostly covers politics outside of the two-party dominance, although I also touch upon the two major parties in national politics during the preceding week. This week, I have stories about former independent candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who appeared before two Senate committees questioning him about his nomination to be the head of the Department of Health and Human Services. Also, a story about his former vice presidential candidate, Nicole Shannahan, warning senators who vote against Kennedy's nomination to that position. I also have a story about the Democratic National Committee electing a new chair, but also that one of the candidates for chair who didn't make it reaffirmed this commitment for the Democrats to try to keep the Green Party off the ballot in presidential elections and other elections as well, I assume. And I also have some updates on the Libertarian Party chair, or the former chair, and the Good Party, which is a organization trying to help independent candidates, and a few other things, including updates on what's going on with me. So let's start off with, first of all, just looking back in the last 2 weeks. Hasn't even been a full 2 weeks that Donald Trump has been in office as president this time around. And the chaos in Washington, D.C. is just amazing. He's really taking, he and his cronies, sometimes it seems like decisions are made without Trump's input, hard to tell, but they are taking a sledgehammer to the federal bureaucracy. Just to update you on some of that, of course, somebody there tried to freeze grants and aid from the federal government to various organizations, and there was a big uproar in the public about this, as well as two courts that blocked it. The Trump administration backed down on that one. They terminated a lot of inspectors generals of agencies. Their job is to make sure that federal agencies are doing their jobs properly and meeting certain standards, especially in how they spend their money for designated purposes. Terminated diversity, equity, and inclusion programs across the federal government. Also sent the military to help with ramped up deportations from this country of immigrants who are here without proper documentation. Reassigned and demoted several dozens, it says here, FBI agents who worked either on the January 6th prosecutions or on investigations and prosecutions having to do with Donald Trump's actions. Some of them resigned rather than accepting demotions or reassignments. Somebody in the federal government sent out an email to hundreds of thousands of federal employees saying that if they send back the email saying they resigned from their position, they will be guaranteed pay and benefits through September 30th. But if they don't resign, they won't be guaranteed to keep their job going into the future. Not clear who sent this out. Smacks of Elon Musk, who did a similar thing when he took over Twitter, trying to just clear things out and start fresh with people of his own choosing. And that's regardless, they'll get paid through September 30th, regardless of whether they're actually showing up for work or even keeping their workload up. And then also there's orders to remove references to climate change from the website of the Department of Agriculture and all their subsidiary agencies, and removal from websites of references to transgender people and other things like that. So really huge number of changes that they're trying to implement at the federal level. One thing this did accomplish, besides a lot of chaos and confusion, was that the Democrats started to close ranks a little more and at least agreed on a strategy to oppose some of Trump's nominees for cabinet departments. And I saw this in the testimony, the hearings for Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Let me bring up his picture here from one of those hearings. He showed up today, this last week, Wednesday, he appeared before the Senate Finance Committee. And then on Thursday, he appeared before the Senate Committee on Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions. I only saw a little bit of these, maybe an hour and a half to 2 hours, something like that. And it did seem like Democrats had already made up their mind about him and were just using the hearings as an opportunity for gotcha moments to try to expose him from their point of view. Republicans were a little more friendly, but even there was some skepticism about Kennedy, which puts his nomination in question. Neither of the committees have voted yet to move his nomination to the floor of the Senate. There has to be a majority in the Senate to vote to nominate him, to approve the nomination for him to take office, and that hasn't happened yet. One of the responses to the Democrats' grilling of Kennedy came from Kennedy's former vice presidential candidate pick. I should back up and say the reason I've been covering Kennedy is because he was an important independent candidate in the presidential election, and I covered that campaign extensively, so that I still regard him kind of as an independent who threw in his lot with Trump when his independent candidacy started to fade, and he saw an opportunity to accomplish some of the things he set out to accomplish. His former vice presidential candidate, who hasn't joined the Republican Party, to my knowledge, is still an independent and formerly helped some Democrats in their campaign. She's a billionaire, came out of a marriage with a lot of money, and also started her own company, a digital company of some kind, forget which exactly. Anyway, she came out on formerly Twitter, now X, with a statement warning senators who voted against Kennedy. Let's put that up and watch what she had to say.
This hasn't been widely reported, but in 2020, I cut large checks to Chuck Schumer to help Democrats flip 2 Senate seats in Georgia from red to blue. The 2 candidates I helped elect, Senator Raphael Warnock and Senator John Ossoff. Please know I will be watching your votes very closely. I will make it my personal mission that you lose your seats in the Senate if you vote against the future health of America's children. And more than that, I also want to say to Senators Mitch McConnell, Lindsey Graham, Lisa Murkowski, Susan Collins, Bill Cassidy, Tom Tillis, James Lankford, Cory Booker, John Fetterman, Bernie Sanders, and Catherine Cortez Masto, this is a bipartisan message, and it comes directly from me. While Bobby may be willing to play nice, I won't. If you vote against him, I will personally fund challengers to primary you in your next election, and I will enlist hundreds of thousands to join me. Big Pharma and Big Ag have exploited us for far too long. It ends now. You're either on the side of transparency and accountability, or you are standing in the way. The choice is yours. Please choose wisely.
Well, that was Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s former vice presidential running mate, warning both Republican and Democratic senators that she will use her money to fund primary challenges against them if they voted against Robert F. Kennedy Jr., saying even if Kennedy played nice with the committee, she wasn't going to. All right, so what's going on elsewhere in the Democratic Party? They met to elect the chair of the Democratic National Committee. And just this morning, they announced they had elected Ken Martin, who was one of the front runners for this. Not very interesting election, I don't think. The 2 leading candidates both said they were going to invest more funds in all of the states to be competitive everywhere and to keep a permanent campaign apparatus going, but nothing radical, no radical changes in the offing. On the other hand, the Independent Political Report had canvassed all these candidates for the chair of the Democratic National Committee as to whether they shared the views of former candidate James Skoufis, who denounced the Green Party and said they were going to play hardball with them. There was one candidate, again, a long shot candidate, but I think it represents a widespread sentiment within the Democratic Party, who said, let me bring up the quote for you. This is Jason Paul, one of the candidates for the chair of the Democratic National Committee who didn't get elected, but he had to say that I believe under our current system, the Democratic Party has an obligation to protect its odds of winning by preventing third-party candidates from getting on the ballot by all legal means. He added that he would support ranked choice voting for offices and the elimination of the Electoral College, if that's any consolation to you. So continued hostility towards the Green Party as though they had something to do with their loss of the Senate and the presidency or other offices as well. Maybe they should try a little bit harder to get their act together. On other news, I have been reporting on turmoil in the Libertarian Party, and last week I said that their chair, their controversial chair, Angela McArdle, who had resigned last week. She also said in a post on X that she had a series of big reveals lined up. They are really fun and guaranteed to make some heads explode. Didn't elaborate on that yet to my knowledge, but the Third Party Watch did report online that the caucus she belongs to, the Mises Caucus, they have launched a campaign to elect one of their leaders, Michael Hesse or Hesse, I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, Heise. Anyway, they say they're campaigning for him to be the new chair. But down here in that announcement, you see on your screen highlighted in yellow that Angela McArdle is resigning as chair of the Libertarian National Committee for a post in the Trump administration. Now, that's not something I've heard elsewhere, so I can't verify that that is completely accurate. But that corresponds with my suspicions that there was an alliance between McArdle and the Mises Caucus and the Trump campaign all along to try to boost the campaign, the Trump campaign at some point at the expense of their own candidate. And in the return for the bargain, Trump would do a few things for them, one of which he did. He pardoned somebody that they wanted pardoned, Ross Ulbricht. And she says they got a libertarian into a cabinet position, or at least nominated, who was Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I don't see Kennedy or Trump as in any way reflecting libertarian views. Anyway, so apparently she's got a job offer with the Trump administration. How about that? Also, in the past, I've reported on the California top two primary system as one thing that makes it difficult for for minor parties, alternative parties, to be able to get on the general election ballot. And since a large part of my coverage is about minor parties and independent candidates trying to get elected, if they can't even get on the ballot in the general election, they certainly aren't going to get elected. So there is a federal lawsuit that three alternative parties, the Green Party, the Libertarian Party, and the Peace and Freedom Party, which only exists in California, have brought against the state to get rid of the top two system. And there was news item just yesterday that the state of California met the deadline of January 31st to file their brief about how they respond to this. And their takeaway was that they didn't think that this lawsuit had any merit, that it didn't raise any new issues or new statements of facts that would allow the court to proceed in taking action. So they're asking for the dismissal of the case. This is from the Ballot Access News posted by Richard Winger. And Richard Winger points out that the response by the state says that these issues were settled in the 2015 case of Rubin versus Padilla. But they point out that since then, there's been a big change in the way the California top two system works. Instead of the primaries being held in June, they have been moved earlier to March in presidential years. And there is another court case, I believe it was in Washington, in which the judge specifically said that if, for example, primaries were held as early as March, that would be unconstitutional because it would create a hardship for alternative parties to even get heard during the general election campaign. So I don't know how the judge is going to rule on this, obviously, but I don't think this is a slam dunk for either side, as far as I can tell. All right, so what else? Okay, the California top two system. I'm here in California, moved to San Diego last year, and I've had this idea I've been promoting about bringing having independent and alternative party voters all vote in an election to endorse a candidate among their candidates to be whatever office they're seeking to be the nominee, not the nominee, maybe the nominee, depending on how it works. Let me start that all over again. I've been promoting this idea for voters to be able to vote to endorse one of the candidates running other than a major party candidate in order to boost that candidate's candidacy. All right, is that a little more clear? But I haven't been, I've been reaching out to people, but haven't moved too far on this because I've been looking into other organizations for independent voters to see what they're doing. Now, one of these that I've mentioned in the past is called the Good Party, which is not actually a party. Let me bring up some of their stuff here. This is the homepage for their website, in which they say that their mission is making people matter more than money in our democracy. But what they actually do, they don't organize meetings of people. They have a website here that's supposed to help candidates with various digital tools. So I looked into that more. I actually signed up for a free account on their website, and this brought me into a dashboard. You can see here that I'm a little remiss. They're warning me. I haven't contacted any voters yet. I don't have a campaign, so of course I haven't contacted any voters. Down further on that page, you can see that they are given tools for a candidate to track how well they're doing at reaching out to voters through, for example, door knocking, texting, phone banking, yard signs, digital advertising, direct mail, or events and rallies. They have the capacity here to generate a script for a candidate and to schedule things and to log their progress in this. All of this sounds fine if it's for free. I think this part of it is for free. The reason I'm a little doubtful is that when it came to something even more valuable, which is voter data, it brought me to this page, which says I need to upgrade to their pro version for just $10 a month. Now, $10 a month is a modest fee if you're getting something good for it. I'm not sure what kind of voter data they're offering. And it also says there at the top that this demonstration account, which is apparently what I have, that updates are made in your demonstration account and are not stored. Upgrade now to prevent data loss. So it sounds like you have to upgrade there as well. All right, so what does all this portend? Well, it's not free. I'm not sure what kind of services they're offering. It sounds like it might be helpful to candidates who don't otherwise have a lot of help in running a professional campaign. Maybe it gives you some ideas for writing a script or for putting out other voter outreach efforts. It may be at $10 a month. It's a bargain for the kind of voter you get, and also for some kind of in-person guidance, personal guidance. I don't know, but since I signed up for it, I got a text message in the middle of the night, actually here about 3 a.m. in California, and then later a follow-up email saying that, okay, you've started here, but you haven't continued. Please sign up and continue to go on forward with this. I think what they're trying to do, I think those were generated by a bot, a robot, artificial intelligence, because I replied to the text message saying, oh, hi, I do have questions since you asked for questions. Would somebody like to be interviewed about what the Good Party is doing? Because I have this podcast in which I talk about independent candidates as well as other candidates outside the two major party. I have not received a reply from them. This is days later, at least. Don't expect to receive a reply because I don't think that's what they're about, is talking about what they're doing. I think they just put up this website, hope that it's helpful to people and allow people to upgrade so that they can pay for the website and maybe some of their other services. But I don't know. It doesn't look like they're in to make a lot of bucks, but it does look like it's not anything that independent voters would be involved in, just candidates who want some kind of help with organizing their campaign. Other than that, there is the United Independence Movement. Let's put that up again. I played a video from the head of this last week. I've been trying to get in touch with them. I did sign up for their newsletter. Haven't received any newsletters yet and have not had success in trying to contact them. So far, not a lot of progress there. I will keep you updated on my efforts to start my own idea of this third-party project to endorse a candidate specifically for the California governor's race coming up next year. Let you know how I'm doing. Other than that, I did not have a video in the middle of this week since the last update. Part of the reason was got busy with family stuff. But another part of the reason is I was thinking about doing a video on a specific subject and didn't quite put all my thoughts together. And that subject has to do with the Maga movement and their main parts of their coalition. Number one, of course, is billionaires and millionaires who want to just take an axe to the federal government so that they are freed of any restraints to take advantage of ordinary people like us and make more money at our expense. At least that's how I see it. Editorial here. Another part of it, though, is these Christian nationalists. They nominated Pete Hegseth to the Department of Defense, and he got the Senate voted to confirm that nomination. And he is a member of the Christian nationalist movement. He's got all kind of tattoos on his body that show affiliation with that. Also, they have nominated somebody to be the head of the department, the Office of Management and Budget, that oversees the presidential budget process, their recommendations to Congress for a budget. And this is, again, somebody who's affiliated with the Christian nationalist movement. And the reason I find that disturbing is that Christian nationalists also have an agenda of curtailing the influence of ordinary voters in favor, not so much of billionaires, but their idea of who should be in charge of the government should be the right kind of Christians. And they are not afraid to state that. So looks like what they want is a theocracy. So I found that very interesting, especially their take on how the Bible says that we're going to have this Armageddon and in the Middle East, and they're plumping for continued military assistance to Israel, and they've been doing this for years because they think that's where the big battle is going to be fought, bringing on the end of the world and the return of Jesus to rule over the earth, and they'll be raptured. Those folks will be raptured up into heaven soon. I'm sure some of you find this serious stuff if you're Christians. Others find it maybe absurd. I find it disturbing because that's not how I read the Bible. I've had a long background in Bible studies. I'll tell you about that in another episode, but I wanted to point out, I was saying, whoops, wrong finger. I was saying earlier in the year, I'm in trouble pointing, this picture up here, I was going to explain what it's about because it's not real clear. What that is, let me give you a close-up of that, is a picture of the scene from the Gospels of Jesus. Sometimes it's called he's cleansing the temple. Other times it says he's driving out the money changers. And those are two interpretations of this scene in which he throws over tables and he makes statements and refers back to earlier scripture, Jewish scriptures. What I think that was all about, and it is consistent with my view of Jesus, is it was a symbolic protest against how the temple administration was collaborating with the Jewish aristocracy there in Israel, and actually called Judea at the time, southern part of historic Israel from earlier on during the reign of King David. Anyway, the temple is located in Judea, and Jesus came in and he drove out some people. I think it was a symbolic protest against how the temple administration had this money from the aristocracy there. You really should say the oligarchy there, and how they were loaning money to peasants and then, which they couldn't repay, and then taking their land from them. So the Jesus movement was in large part about trying to bring relief to ordinary people who are under a great deal of financial pressure, especially debt. If that doesn't have something to do with today, I don't know what does. I see Jesus in a line of protesters who are trying to help people who are suffering economically. My other views of Jesus, I'll leave for another show. I think it's important just to address the biblical interpretation of these Christian nationalists, because I think they're really a threat to the survival of the world. If we have a nuclear war because of their readings of Christian scriptures, that would be a pretty serious thing. I think people have to look more carefully at what the Bible actually says and the various ways of interpreting it. I will say up front, I don't regard myself as a Christian in the sense that I accept the creedal statements about Jesus, But other than that, I do find Jesus a compelling figure, and I think historically he can best be understood as a political protester who thought that God was going to intervene to create a new kind of society. All right, enough said about that. This is Political Dharma. I'm Alan Zundel. You can find more about whatever I've been thinking about on my blog on politicaldharma.com, even though I haven't updated that either in a while. Sorry that I'm finding it hard to get this stuff done, really, with all, I just I'm slowing down as I get older, I guess. Days go by really fast. Like, subscribe if you like this, share it with other people. And I hope to have something else for you out sometime this week. And then the update again on the weekend. So thanks a lot for watching.